Andrew S. Fine Philanthropy Award.
My name is Andrew Snyder Fine. I've always been a dreamer. And I was not an outstanding student. So that gives you lots of time to dream big. I consider my role here in my office head dreamer and the head break. And I vacillate between the two all the time. I've got the best of all possible worlds because I have a lot of people who work with me in this company who are bright and take special care of me so that I can do lots of nonprofit things that I care about.
The Crispus Attucks Cultural Organization needed to have people who were on the fundraising committee who were experienced, who were knowledgeable about potential donors, and who knew how to make their presentations so that people would want to donate.
W.T. Mason and I had crossed swords in federal court a time or two, but we had a lot of respect for one another.
So I called him.
I got a call from W.T. and said,
because at this time there were no prospects for getting outside financing to undertake the needed renovations.
He said, would you care to come and take a look at this project? I know you like doing that sort of thing.
He said he would think about it, and then he thought about it, and he indicated he would participate.
There were these older gentlemen who, older than I, maybe 10 or 15 years, and they were the keepers of the light.
They got real names like W.T. Mason, one of the persons whom you've probably gotten to know, and Andrew certainly got to know. Marshall, who always hangs around the theater, and Johnson, they were really part of the keepers of the light. They were the young Turks who kept us abreast, alive in saying we ought to do something about this theater.
They didn't have resources, they didn't have political clout, they didn't have access to any of that, but they somehow kept meeting and kept talking about it. And they got to Father Joe Green.
And I was on the council at the time, was able to ask him to see what we could do to save this building.
They would work on a formula that for every dollar we raised, they would contribute a dollar.
We made a study, and this is before Andrew came on, to find out what kind of condition this building was in, and it was a disaster.
Until, I think it was a downtown Norfolk Corporation came to one of our meetings, and the next thing I know, Joe Green gets up and says,
many thought it ought to come down, but we said we wanted to save this building. It had so much history for our people, built back in a time when it was the only source of entertainment in a Jim Crow society, in a Jim Crow city. It's the only place they could go, and they made this possible for themselves, and we should keep that dream alive. But then how do you get the money, to do something like that? That's when I came in contact with a young man named Andrew Fine. But here he was, and there we were, and we went to the housing authority to tell them that this is a team, and we were going to try to go out and raise the money.
We're so privileged to have Andy Fine here, who's going to raise the money for the Attucks Theatre. Needless to say, I was breathless.
And he opened doors that I didn't know existed.
But I thought it was a daunting task, and it was worth working on. And it just took perseverance, really. It was just never quit. That's kind of one of the attributes that I have, which I never know when to quit.
When we reopened our doors, we did have a challenge. How are we going to engage a community with the rich and vibrant history of the Attucks Theatre, largely underserved by the arts? The first things I did was develop a summer arts program. The day that we saw our first bicycle in the loading dock was a day I'll never forget. The Attucks Theatre became alive. There was laughter, there were children that really needed a safe haven to go to for the summer. And we had wonderful mentors and teaching artists that were willing to donate their time. We started with one theater program with 6 children on stage. Today we now have 30 programs with over 200 students attending every summer.
By teaching the arts to young children who perhaps never had an opportunity to be exposed, and that's really a worthwhile undertaking.
Today, the Crispus Attucks Cultural Center serves over 700 under-resourced children annually.
There's no undertaking that's any higher in my mind than teaching children who perhaps wouldn't have had an opportunity to have that kind of exposure and to have the professionalism around it that we've got. Very proud of that. Well, I have a wife of over 50 years and a dog that's very explosive. She's a 4-year-old puppy. And my wife and I spent a lot of time together. I have children and grandchildren. One lives in LA, 2 live here. 20-year-old grandchildren in college. I love being around those kids. It's the next generation. Got LA grandchildren. So, and we enjoy this community a lot.
This is what excellence looks like. Andrew S. Fine.